Some memories of the past seem to plague us, like indelible marks that persist even when we try to erase them. Over time, some pains continue and even seem to get worse. But what if, instead of avoiding these memories, we could make them something meaningful in our lives? Since childhood, we have been taught that life should be straight and impeccable, free of flaws. We were instructed to hide our mistakes, erase the challenging moments, and carry on as if nothing had happened. Nowadays, everything that breaks is discarded, whether it's an item, a project, or even a person. But what do we do when life invariably confronts us and tears us apart? Perhaps it was an unforeseen event, an irreparable loss, or a disappointment that left deep scars. We always have the same initial reaction: try to forget, erase the marks, and pretend that nothing happened. However, these hurts don't dissipate simply because we want them to. They hide and remain silent, waiting for the right moment to return. We unconsciously begin to bear an invisible burden, denying significant parts of our own trajectory. What if there was another point of view to all this? In Japan, there is a philosophy capable of radically altering our view of the past. It is a tradition that not only welcomes imperfections, but turns them into something beautiful and strong. It is an art that teaches us that every mark, every crack, every moment of suffering can be transformed into a gold standard on our path. Think of a delicate, almost fragile porcelain vase that falls out of your hands and onto the floor. In the West, the impact would be catastrophic. It would certainly be discarded, since everything that falls apart loses its value. In Japan, there is an art form that interprets this situation quite differently, not as an end, but as a new stage. This art form is known as kintsugi, an approach to repairing damaged items using lacquer mixed with gold. Here's the intriguing point. Instead of hiding the damage, kintsugi transforms it into the object's most valuable component. Every crack, every wound is highlighted, becoming the most attractive aspect of the object's new identity. The technique called kintsugi originated in the 15th century, when the shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa broke his favorite tea bowl. He sent it for repairs in the hope that it would be restored to its original splendor. However, to his disappointment, the bowl returned, bound by primitive metal brackets. Although it was useful, it had no aesthetic appeal. Dissatisfied, the shogun challenged Japanese craftsmen to discover a more refined method for its restoration, giving rise to the kintsugi. However, kintsugi goes beyond simply repairing ceramic. It is a philosophy of life strongly linked to the principle of wabi-sabi, the deep conviction that there is beauty beyond perfection, time, and the genuineness of objects. In the West, it's common to spend our lives in search of perfection, as if only our flaws are admirable when we hide them. In Japan, the perspective is different. The marks we leave are part of our history, and denying them is like denying existence itself. From an early age, we learn to hide our flaws, be they physical, emotional, or spiritual. We create modified versions of ourselves as if life were a social media page where only our most memorable moments are displayed. However, let's face it, nobody gets through life without making mistakes. So how about, instead of trying to erase them, highlighting them? Think about it for a moment. If you had the ability to use kintsugi in your own existence, which cracks would you turn into gold? When we break an object, we are aware that it can be recovered. What if we are the ones who break when our minds are devastated by an invisible pain? How can we repair something that can't be touched, but feels like a physical injury, silently but devastatingly penetrating the mind and body without healing? Trauma changes our view of the world, our ideas and emotion. Contrary to what many people think, it's not just a painful memory from the past, but something that shapes the present and guides us, often without us even realizing it. According to the author of the book, The Body Remembers Everything, Bessel van der Kolk, trauma doesn't go away with the passage of time. It establishes itself and expresses itself in different ways that are not always easy to identify. It can present itself as unreasonable anxiety, an irrational fear of circumstances we don't understand, or a constant feeling of being distanced from our own lives, as if we were watching rather than experiencing. In Western culture, we have learned to disregard emotional pain. Generally, the advice is limited to get over it, forget the past, move on, as if it were possible to erase marks with the power of thought. But is this philosophy effective? Kintsugi proposes that we take a completely different course. Instead of denying the cracks, this practice instructs us to identify them and convert them into something valuable. Contemporary science confirms that this methodology is appropriate. Van der Kolk clarifies that the authentic healing process begins when we stop running away and finally face our pain with compassion. He argues that hiding our emotions puts us in a situation of internal conflict. Hiding pain takes a lot of energy and prevents us from enjoying life to the full. In other words, ignoring pain does not lead to freedom. On the contrary, understanding it is liberating. Kintsugi encourages us to do the same with our internal wounds, but only if we have the bravery to face them. Reflect for a moment on something in your life that you've been avoiding, an uncomfortable memory, a mistake from the past, something that has been buried but keeps reappearing. Kintsugi doesn't ask us to pretend that everything is fine. Instead, it shows us that our history, with all its imperfections, cracks, and the marks of time, is precisely what sets us apart. So instead of hiding your scars, consider highlighting them with gold. Experience shows us that we can't go back. Erasing the past won't change the losses, mistakes, and disappointments we've already experienced. However, there is a crucial distinction between remembering the past and accepting it. Most of us seek to eliminate what causes us pain. Most of us try to erase painful moments from our history, avoiding certain memories and avoiding unpleasant feelings. When something reminds us of past pain, we tend to turn away. We do this because we believe that accepting pain implies clinging to it, when in reality, the opposite is true. Kintsugi teaches us that acceptance is the only true path to liberation. This traditional Japanese technique does not strive to hide the cracks, but incorporates them into the beauty of the object. When the cracks are filled with gold, a broken piece of pottery becomes more valuable. It's also possible to become stronger when we stop denying our scars and learn to give them new meaning. But how does this manifest itself in everyday life? Initially, we must recognize our scars as elements of our identity. In Japan, a piece of pottery restored with kintsugi is not seen as imperfect, but as unique and unparalleled. Its golden cracks tell a narrative of triumph and resistance. What if we looked at our own marks through the same eyes? Instead of hiding them, we could see them as evidence of our strength. The pain we experience shapes and strengthens us. However, the first step towards this change is to stop resisting it. As Carl Jung mentioned, what you resist persists. The more we strive to repress the feeling, the more intense it becomes within us. Acceptance does not imply approval of what happened, but only the recognition that the past cannot be changed. We can only change our relationship with it. Kintsugi doesn't strive to hide the cracks, but recognizes and highlights them. We could perhaps apply the same principle to our history. The next step is to convert the pain into effective learning. Have you ever noticed that many of the most inspiring personalities have faced severe challenges? Some people write books, while others help those who have been through similar situations. Some people simply choose to live with peace and gratitude because they understand what suffering is. Pain can be devastating, but it can also represent a portal to something deeper. Now think about it. If your anguish could be transformed into something valuable, like gold in a kintsugi, what would you make of it? The recovery process doesn't happen instantly, and that's not a problem. The essence of kintsugi reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. There's no problem in taking time to recover. When we are ready, we will be more attractive, more robust, and, above all, more genuine. The past should not be a burden. It's all about how we look at it. Sometimes when we look at the past, we experience regret, sorrow, and even shame. We reflect, what if I had acted differently? Or why did this happen to me? However, these questions change absolutely nothing. Instead, they trap us in an endless cycle of guilt and suffering. The philosophy of kintsugi offers a new point of view on the past. It doesn't have to be a burden. It can be the foundation for something beautiful and relevant, like restoring a broken piece of pottery with gold. Narratives, even painful ones, can take on new meaning. Now think about which narrative your scars tell. In kintsugi, each crack in a repaired vase has a different interpretation. Some describe falls, others unforeseen blows. However, they all symbolize something that has stood the test of time and grown even stronger. It's not different for you. Many people think that their pain weakens them, but what if the opposite happens? What if each injury is actually an emblem of your strength? Someone who has experienced rejection has learned about resilience. Those who have experienced loss have understood the importance of presence. Those who have faced difficulties have learned about new beginnings. If you analyze your trajectory from a proper perspective, you'll realize that your marks don't diminish you, but rather make you unique. However, there is one crucial aspect. Not coming to terms with the past does not mean accepting it. Acceptance does not imply denial, but freedom. Many people are afraid to accept what has happened because they believe it implies surrendering. However, there's a significant difference between these two situations. Denial is saying that there is nothing more to be done. Acceptance is admitting that it happened, but it doesn't determine who you are. Kintsugi specialists use the fragments of a damaged object to transform them into something beautiful. You can carry out the same procedure with segments of your story, reconstructing it again. It's interesting to note that your pain can become the element that most connects you to other people. Think about the people who have most influenced your existence. How many had stories of overcoming? How many people really shared your pain? When we try to hide our mistakes and marks, we end up isolating ourselves. However, when we have the bravery to accept our humanity, we establish authentic bonds. The thinker Alan de Botton said, "The pain you hide isolates you from the world. The pain you feel connects you to it." Kintsugi teaches us precisely this. What appears to be a weakness may in fact be what connects us most deeply to others. We don't need to erase our past in order to move forward. We just need to change our view of it. Kintsugi serves as a beautiful metaphor for this change. But how can we convert this Japanese philosophy that sees beauty in scars into something that can be effectively applied in everyday life? Identifying our mistakes is an important step, but it's not enough. We need to take action to turn these cracks into something robust and possibly valuable. Let's start with self-acceptance. How many times have you found yourself dwelling on a previous mistake? Comparing yourself to someone who appears to have an ideal life, or considering yourself less valuable because of your limitations? Kintsugi invites us to look at these marks and ask ourselves, what if, instead of hiding them, we perceive them as elements that set us apart? Self-acceptance doesn't happen instantly, but begins with a change in the way we communicate with ourselves. What about challenging experiences? We all face these situations. Certain mistakes are minimal, while others leave us numb for a prolonged period. However, if there's one thing that kintsugi teaches us, it's that cracks can grow stronger. The key is to change the way we deal with pain. Ask yourself, what has this given me? How can I develop from this? Can someone benefit from my story? It's no wonder that many people find meaning in sharing their experiences. Pain doesn't have to be synonymous with anguish. It has the capacity to be converted into wisdom and power. Improving oneself is a crucial component of the process. In kintsugi, it's not just about accepting the damaged piece. The gold that fills the cracks must provide resistance, not just appearance. In life, this means developing habits that will help us with maintenance. By recording our experiences, we can improve them. The practice of meditation and mindfulness enables us to face complex emotions without being consumed by them. The body also holds a memory, so movement, whether it's sport, dancing, or simply going for a walk, can be a means of liberation. Seeking professional help is like handing over tools to an experienced craftsman. Some reconstructions require assistance. To conclude, recovery does not follow a linear path. There will be days when everything seems calm, and others when the same pains reappear. However, every small step forward is significant. The pain you feel does not determine who you are. However, how you recover can shape your future. All of us, at some point, have fallen and disintegrated into parts that seem unreachable to rebuild. Some of these marks are noticeable, while others are hidden, inscribed in the memory of the body and mind. However, they remain with us, forming us, regardless of our will. Kintsugi provides us with a relevant lesson. Our characteristics are not flaws, they are part of who we are. Each suffering, failure, or disappointment can take on a new meaning, becoming golden milestones on our path. It's evidence that we not only survive, but also find beauty even in the parts we wish we could forget. You may have spent years trying to hide your marks, pretending that certain events never happened. But what if, instead of hiding them, you highlighted them? What if, instead of rejecting your experiences, you accepted them as part of your journey? Acceptance does not imply abandonment. Acceptance means looking at the past without holding on to sorrows. Understanding that your story, even with all its flaws, has value. If a craftsman can turn a damaged vase into a work of art, you too have the ability to turn your pain into something greater, a lesson, a learning experience, and a source of inspiration for others. At the end of the day, true strength lies not in never breaking down, but in continually getting back up. So what gaps in your career can be turned into gold? If you've made it this far, thank you for joining me in this reflection. I understand that analyzing one's past is not always simple. It's often painful. Sometimes we choose to run away from it. However, if this publication has contributed to a new perspective on your story, then it was worth it. Now tell me, when would you apply kintsugi? If this post has made an impact on you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need it today. Sometimes a new vision is all you need to move forward.